Hello, wonderful. It is Sarah K Ramsey, and I'm here with Libby Simmons. Say hi, Libby.
Hi.
And she is a career coach. She works with Clearview Coaching and Consulting, and you're the owner of that, right? You're the main event.
That's right.
Yeah.
One and only.
She's the boss of Clearview Coaching and Consulting. And she works with people, mainly women, that are looking to make a career change and help them figure out what to do in the first place. Strategies of how to get there and how to get there with killer confidence. So if you have followed me for any amount of time, you can see exactly why I selected Libby for this conversation, because what do I do? Where do I go next? What am I good at? Oh, I don't know what to do next. And how, after a toxic relationship or any kind of major life change, it kills your confidence. And we want killer confidence. Hey, Libby, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. You're exactly right. Get that killer confidence, know your worth, and step out into what you were made to do. So I'm so excited to be here today.
And to know what you were made to do, right? To be able to step out
Yes.
into it and to know. So let's talk confidence, and mainly let's talk about, since you're a career coach, may I say, there's a huge financial price tag to not being confident. Huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When
that play out?
when we as job seekers aren't able to position ourselves confidently and clearly, so the company that we're applying for, the people that we're talking to, if we don't show that, they don't see that. And then you either aren't hired for that role, or you're hired in a lower rate because they may be doubting you and your abilities. And so knowing your worth, knowing what you bring to the table, knowing that you 100% deserve this role and are great for this role, that's key. And then even as you progress through the job interview process, you get to the salary negotiations. So often we're just quick to take the first thing that people give us or the first number that people offer. And when you know, yeah, it's terrible. We leave money on the table. When you know your value and what you can contribute, even if you've never done that role, when you know your potential, you can command with your presence and your words a higher salary. And then that sets you up for bonuses and everything in the future. It's critical.
Your retirement. When you retire,
absolutely,
we don't think about conversations we have in our 30s affecting our life in our 60s
right.
As far as salaries. And I want to this is not a conversation about dating, or about toxic relationships necessarily, but I want to go back and say what she said and listen to it in the context of dating, listen to it in the context of friendship, listen to the context of life, okay? If you don't show what you're worth, they don't see what you're worth. Knowing your worth and what you bring to the table cost you in every way, financially. We're too quick to take what people give us. Okay, did you hear what she said? And all the areas that applies to. And, sometimes people say, oh, I feel like there's so much to work on or so much to do. It's like, no. There's really not. There's a few things to work on and then you apply those to every area of your life.
Absolutely.
And so many of my ladies are high achievers, and you hear this language of like, oh, at work, I can't ask for what I'm worth. I can show my confidence. I can show my value. Amazing. Let's just apply that to the other areas too, right?
Absolutely.
At the other areas too. Yeah. So I love your language around that, and you command that. So let's talk about what it means if you don't show it, they don't see it. What does that look like in an interview process or in finding a new career?
I think you can see it in a lot of ways. Some of the more obvious visual ones are just looking at someone's body language as they're interviewing or considering your own. Think about past interviews you've been in. Do you shrink inward? Do you sit tight together? Do you close up? Do you put your arms around yourself? Do you avoid eye contact? Because that can be a big one. It's hard to look at somebody right in the eye and say, I am worth this. Here's what I bring to the table. Same for dating, for anything like you just said. But so you see a lack of confidence visually. And then you also see it in other ways. When someone says, tell me about yourself, do you downplay your skill set? I know you do. I know most people do. I see it all the time. I've been there. I've done that. And you temper, or you say, well, I need to be humble. I need to not brag about myself. No, you don't. Interviews are the time to brag and to put your absolute best foot forward. So it's hard for people to get over that.
Well, I have a theory on humility, if I may. As I'm like adjusting I'm hearing here like, oh, excited about my talk. She's talking about her body language, and you can tell I hope my body language is saying how engaged I am in this conversation. Though I was in the Mrs. Tennessee for America pageant, so there would say my body language should be my shoulders back, but I'll just go with it anyway. So within the conversation about humility, okay. We get this idea in our head that humility is never saying anything nice about yourself.
Right.
So I want to flip that and say humility is, not accepting bad behavior, not accepting less than your worth, and just to say like, it doesn't align with my integrity that maybe women should get paid less than men. That doesn't align with my integrity. So it's not humble to accept less than men. It's not humble to accept less than I'm worth. That's not humble.
Right.
I don't want to say dumb in a bad way, but these are my listeners, so they don't care what I say. Dumb, right? That's not humble. It's not humble. It's not the same as humble. Whatever toxic voice you have in your head, get it out. We need women to lead by example. We need women to speak with confidence. We need women who can do eye contact. Come on. These are like basic skills in our world.
So I love what you said about that toxic voice. And I have, if I may, a little 3-step process that I help people with. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is so good. So when you are prepping for an interview or a date or anything where you need to be your best self, pay attention to what you're hearing in your mind. Are you hearing, maybe it's your mother, it's always the mothers, right? Are you hearing your mother or a past boss or someone say, well, you're not good enough for that. You'll never get that. You don't deserve that. So number one, capture those thoughts. Literally take a piece of paper and write them down. You are not good enough, or whatever the thought is. And then take that thought and put some physical, personal characteristics around what voice is saying that to you. Does it sound like an old lady? This is a little bit weird, but stick with me. Does it sound like an old lady? Does it sound like a man's voice? Who's saying that to you? Because you are not that voice. That is an inner critic, an imposter syndrome that you deal with, but you are not that voice. That is not you. It is separate. So put some thought and characteristics around that and then actually do something with it. So I had a client that had an interview, 3rd round. Nerves were just crazy because it was coming down to the wire. She had this voice in her head that said, you're never going to get this. This is all a sham. People are going to figure out you don't know what you're doing. And so she took, and I'm grabbing a piece of paper here. She took a sticky note and drew a face on the piece of paper, just like I'm doing right here. And then took a piece of tape, stuck it over the mouth of that sticky note and kept it right next to her phone as she was on the call, because that was her visual reminder to say, that voice needs to be quiet. That voice does not own me. That voice does not have control over me. And so we get these thoughts in our head and we just let them play on repeat until we don't even realize that they're happening anymore. It's just background noise that chips away at our confidence. So if you can get some characteristics around those thoughts and then do something physical with it, put it on a piece of paper, tear up the paper and throw it away, or leave it in the other room, or whatever you need to do to separate yourself from that thought or that voice, you're on your way. You're on your way to confidence. You're on your way to presenting yourself in the best light. So it sounds a little bit weird, but it totally works. Trust me.
No, my ladies will love it. No, that is not weird at all. Yeah. So take a paper, write it down, put some physical characteristics. Who is saying that to you? Okay. And what I say is the toxic people have stolen enough. Don't let them steal your next job.
Absolutely.
Don't let them steal how you feel going on to that next date. Don't let them steal whatever, because toxic voices are about control. Mm-hmm. They are not about the truth. Right?
You deserve control.
Yeah, we get that idea in our head that's like, the toxic person is the truth teller and I'm no. Write it down, maybe crumple it up, right?
Yes.
Or whatever it is. That's
Stomp
awesome.
on it, anything.
I love that. Any other, that's a great tip for confidence. Anything else?
I would say one obvious one is to check your breathing. So when you get nervous, we breathe faster and shorter and shallower. So just focusing yourself, how am I breathing? Let's take a deep breath. You've heard that before probably, but
say it again. Some of
I know we can hear it.
we
hear it 100 times. Amy Cuddy has a great TED talk, if you've heard of her, on the power pose. So again, it goes back to that body language, not shrinking inward. It's standing tall. If you're going to an interview, whether it's sitting at your house remotely now with everything, or if you're going somewhere, go to the restroom before or in the car before you go in and put your shoulders back, put your arms out, make your body bigger. And it actually is physically proven to reduce cortisol levels in your blood and increase your confidence. So knowing physically how to master that with slower breathing, with making your body bigger instead of shrinking inward like you might want to, those can be really helpful. And practicing beforehand, before the big event, practicing what you're going to say or how you're going to act or how you're going to answer questions, then you can have actual confidence that you're going to rock it because you've done it, you've run through it, you've said the words coming out of your mouth, you've said those key things. So those can be really helpful too.
And I tell my clients to practice the scariest thing.
Yes.
Whether it be the salary question, whether it be, why are you divorced? Whether it be, how many kids do you have? I don't know, whatever the scariest thing is for you. We try to, there's a reason they call it a pink elephant in the room, or, hiding your head in the sand. It's easier not to. I had a client recently. She was like, I said, no, practice the salary question. She goes, it's my first interview. They're not going to ask me that. I said, I don't care. Like
practice it anyway. Right.
Of course they asked her, right? She was like, oh, thank you. I'm making 40% more than I thought I was going to, because Sarah asked me that dumb 2-second question, right? But it's the simplest. I have a coach and he says the smallest hinges, swing the biggest doors, and just practicing some of those difficult questions and saying them confidently, right? I make $100K a year. I, have 18 children. I have been divorced 6 times, right? I don't care what it is, I've been practicing those with confidence. So let's dive into, because I know what you said about work with people looking to figure out what to do in the first place and what skills and strengths they bring to that table. I loved some of your language around that before we hit record. So give me some more on that, girl.
Yeah. So it's so easy to just get on the path that somebody else sets for you, whether that's a spouse or a parent or a teacher. Well, you are this way, so you should do this thing. And we just think, oh, okay, my family's a family of doctors. I just should be a doctor, whether or not that's what you really want to do. And so then you wake up one day and say, holy cow, I have X amount of years left to work and this is not for me. Or you get laid off, or there's some shakeup that causes you to say, what am I doing with my life? So to figure out what you're doing with your life, you want to think about what your passions are. What do you love to do? Again, take a piece of paper, write it all down. Anything. If you love reading, write down reading. If you love being outside, write that down, because it all will come together. So once you have your list of things that you love to do, figure out why. So this sounds kind of weird, but one of my things that I love to do is I actually love to be alone. And you might say, well, geez, that's not very nice. But you think about it, when I dig into why I like to be alone, it's because I like time to think. I like to process. I like to have space to put different thoughts together. And so those are key skills that I would carry into a job where you wanted to be more analytical and you wanted to look at those things. Whereas other people, they hate that. They hate being alone. They get energized by being with people. There's nothing right or wrong about what you love to do. It really takes all kinds, but the more you can tap into who you are, the better your fit will be for any job you try for. So get that list down is the first thing. And then write down your list of skills, what you're good at, because it's often different. You might be really good with numbers, but not want to do that forever. in my previous life, when I worked in human resources, I was really good at writing policies. Do I want to write policies forever? No, but I listed that down anyway because I have great attention to detail. I have good use of language. I have all these things that tie into what I love to do, and those connect to help point me in the right direction. So write down what you love, write down what you're good at, and then think about where the needs are in the market. So that sounds a little bit boring, but it's really important, because if you have something you love and you're good at, it's a hobby, which I'm all for hobbies, but we need something that will get you paid, that will have a salary, and people will pay you. Companies
Zero in on what she's saying here, right? And it's okay to have both.
Yes.
But I hear that a lot. You know, I'm a classical piano player. I have a degree in music, and I'm very good at it. And it's, I can and do make money doing it sometimes, but is it, in a way that I would support of my life? Do I want to be in bars every night playing? Some people, it can be a fabulous hobby and interest, and it is my meditation. It is, when I'm having a hard day, I come back to that piano and it's always there for me. It's a fabulous place. And really, you don't want to get locked into, I have to find myself in music, and I can't find myself in things that are going to get me paid. You can do both, but there
absolutely
sometimes is a difference that I do kind of want to point out.
That's really key, is keep those things that keep you going mentally and physically and spiritually and emotionally. Mm-hmm. And then think about, so using the piano example, maybe you're so good at piano and you thrive with that because you're creative and because you pay attention and you listen. So how do those skills translate into the market? And is there a need? Is there a particular industry you're interested in? So start there with figuring out what needs there are. If you love working with children, go down the path of education in that industry. Just look up publications, check on LinkedIn, look up social media community pages. You'll see a lot of questions. What people are talking about is often where needs of the market are. So are people in need of homeschooling options because of all this pandemic stuff? Maybe that's a route you go down. You take your skills and go down that path. It's really, the options are endless. You just want it to match up with the market. And you can only do that by exploring what those needs are and asking questions and searching people on LinkedIn to connect and look at their profiles. Where have they been that you could start to go as well?
And I want to point out something about Libby, if I may. Do you hear how confidently she is speaking about what skills she is good at? Okay. Do you hear, as we model by behavior, do you hear it's like, okay, I'm an introvert, and there was no an extroverts are better or introverts are better. There wasn't any struggle in her head about that. And then it was I like to be alone. And then as she branched out into why she likes being alone, mm-hmm. and then she was able to be eloquently speak about that. There was no maybe, you don't hear women talking about this as often, right? And as we, I was in a executive leadership thing in Texas, and it was all these women who were on a very high level in their careers, and then when they started being asked to speak well about what they did, they shrunk.
Yes.
And Libby doesn't do that. And I don't think I do that. I've had a compliment, people say, you were able to speak about yourself well. Mm-hmm. And I know that wasn't originally what we talked about, but as we speak about confidence, I want you to hear her. I want you to hear her be able to speak about herself well and not apologize for it.
Well,
and that's what she's talking about, bringing into interviews or dates or life, whatever.
Yes. I love that. And that's something I really want to echo, is I was not always that way. Right. Oftentimes I thought I should be more outgoing. I should be, it's the should, could, would that we trap ourselves in. The number one thing that I've learned, and that I am working tirelessly to teach my daughter so she does not have to follow in my off the path footsteps, do not ever apologize for who you are. I don't care if that's in the boardroom or the bedroom, if I can say that, or your friend circle.
Yeah.
You are you for an exact reason and purpose. And do not apologize for that. You're not your neighbor or your best friend or your mother or your sister. Thank heavens, because there's already one of those. You are you exactly because of a reason. And remember that. Take that into your interviews. And there's a difference between knowing who you are and being a cocky jerk. I'm not saying that either, but you bring something to the table that nobody else does. And you don't have to apologize on a date. You don't have to apologize on your interview for who you are. Sure, you can grow and, you can taper things and learn new skills and all that, of course. But don't be sorry for the skills and the amazing quirks and personality that you bring to the table. Life is too short for that. And we as women spend so much time apologizing and downplaying, and we're doing ourselves a disservice. We're doing other women a disservice. We're doing our children a disservice. And companies, when you shrink in, companies lose the benefit of the skill set that you bring.
That's not humility. You shrinking for your children is
Yes.
not humility. It's fear. It's fear. Call it what it is. And
Yes.
pointed out that, don't be an arrogant jerk. Good grief. I mean, I always talk about lead by example. There is no piece of Libby that comes across as an arrogant jerk, yet she's able to say what she's good at.
Right.
That alone is a skill set that is useful in every arena of life, right? Every arena of life. And you're modeling that so well, and I commend you for that, and thank you.
Thank you.
So what other tips would you give women on figuring out who they are, figuring out what's next for them?
I would say,
skills.
Two things. One is don't be afraid to explore and be wrong. So in my younger days, my family told me, you're such a good debater, you should go to law school. And so, okay, it just seemed like, it's interesting. It just seemed like the thing to do. Again, somebody else's path. So I went to law school, and prior to going to law school, I did an internship at a law office, and I hated it. But I felt I'm so far down the path already. I just need to keep doing this. I just need to keep going.
It's always a bad idea. Warning. Yeah.
Yeah. Please, I wish you could have told me that 20 years ago. It was a terrible idea and I was miserable. And so I luckily came to my senses halfway through and withdrew. But how many tons and tons of dollars did I throw down the drain for that? So many, and what a waste of time. However, I was able to use that as an experience to say, I better not do this again. I need to figure out what I want and what I need. So don't be afraid to try something and be wrong and admit that, whoa, maybe this education path isn't the right thing for me. Let's look at what qualities I liked about that and how can I transfer them to something else. So that's one. And on that same note, don't wait until you're 100% qualified, and I'm using air quotes on that, to apply for a role. So studies show on average, and this is a generalization, of course, but men will apply for a role when they're roughly 60% qualified. So they meet 60%. Yeah,
that's
barely
crazy.
half.
Study.
Barely half.
60%, right? So when you're judging, when you see men who are competent, they only have to be 60% sure to be competent.
Yes.
And the women, go ahead and give them this number.
It is almost 100% before they will even apply. So this culture, this earth, this world puts enough limitations and pressure and all that on us. But we are our own worst enemies in that respect, because we are cutting ourselves off from 40% of the opportunities that we could be getting. You do not have to be 100% qualified to get a role. You don't have to be 100% qualified to apply for and get the job of your dreams.
Absolutely.
So why do we do that to ourselves? It's just so disheartening. But today can be the day that you do something different about that.
Love that.
And change it from here. It doesn't have to keep being that way for you anymore.
Yeah, today's the first day of the rest of your life. That phrase, the best time to plant a tree wasn't, 100 years ago. The next best time is now, right?
Absolutely.
Libby, thank you so much. That was such a great conversation on confidence. As well as she didn't know I was going to do this and I didn't know I was going to do this, but seeing her lead by example and just being able to talk well about herself. I wish there were more examples I wish there were more examples that I could point out of women doing that. And it's a real area to strengthen in the female community.
It's a great opportunity.
Great opportunity. And not tearing down other women who are doing it, right? And pushing them off as cocky or whatever, because she certainly does not come across that way. I hope I don't come across that way. And I hope you take these skills that she's given you and come across in your own best brand as you interview and figure out your purpose.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.